might as well. Hopefully they don't get deleted as easily as Facebook Lives seem to. And I haven't been fact-checked, I should say. But anyway, this morning, we're going to chat about bullion. I've been talking about it with a few people and want to know what it is. Does anybody understand what it is? Has it been taught in schools? Anybody got any? That's a big question. And I'll start off with this lead bullion. I don't know if you can work out the shape. It does look like a pyramid. Anyone want to guess what this is? That's the frog in a brick. You know, your house brick, and it's got the indentation in the top of the house brick where the mortar sort of grips in. It's called the frog. And the frog in a brick makes a perfect mold for this shape. I made this when I was 12 years old. This is actually lead. Well, it's either lead from the church roof that we nicked, or it's from some car batteries. It's a bit hard to remember exactly the source of lead back then, but we did avail ourselves of some lead from the local church when we ran out one day. Anyway, hashtag confessions. It's a bit funny. Cheers to your morning. How cold is it where you are? It's about 5 degrees here in southern Australia. That is pretty chilly. So, lead bullion. This is actually got a tinny sound to it. Real pure lead is actually quite a dull sound. It's very soft. This has it's about 4% antimony in it. It's an alloy from the batteries. So it's actually the grid metal from the batteries. When we were breaking the batteries up, we'd smash the paste out of the grids and we'd melt down the terminals and the grids and make lead ingots like this. And then we had some sinker molds, aluminium sinker molds, and we would then melt it all again on a little Primus camp stove in a dog food tin. We'd melt it, we'd scrape off all the scum, we'd pour it all out onto the concrete and purify it, which is what we thought we were doing. And it would go from grey and yucky to shiny and silver. And then we'd fold it all up, melt it back down again and pour it into sinker molds. And we used to sell the sinkers to the local sports store when we were about 12 and 13 and 14 years of age. So if anyone thinks I'm a bit nuts, probably because I've got lead poisoning. We never wore gloves, just had a garden hose to wash the acid off, as it was from car batteries, so we were always covered in acid. My mate's mum and my mum were not very impressed because our clothes would fall apart because they were covered in car acid. But we had fun. And it probably took me into a life of metal, because I'm actually a scrap metal bloke. I've been running my own scrap metal company in various ways for 30 years now, believe it or not. So yeah, I've been dragging this around since I made it. It was a doorstop for a long time, and hasn't really oxidized much. It's pretty stable, it's pretty safe, it won't really corrode. And I made it when I was 12. I'm now 51. Lead bullion. So this would make quite good bullets. Some bullets need a little bit of hardness or antimony in them. So this would actually make good bullets. So if we go into war, you should have a stockpile of lead and a bullet mold and gunpowder. Better put them on the shopping list for Santa. Although this is Australia. So what is bullion? This is bullion. These are coins. And when I say coins, I don't mean coins as in the general circulation coins. We're in Australia, and here is an Australian $1 coin. And on the back it says Elizabeth II in Australia, and this is a 1994 coin, if we can just see. So $1 coin, we've got a $2 coin, the lyrebird on the 10-cent piece, it's the lyrebird. So this is coins in circulation, and the value of the coins, there's a I found this in my property, 1948, yeah, 1948 half penny, 1948 half penny. Found that out in the paddock when I was checking on the horses. That was pretty cool. So these are all worth $1. And then we have commemorative dollar coins. And some of these actually, as a numismatic value, I think a collector's value much higher. So there's some of these rare ones with the paint on them, and they've done it with 50-cent pieces, lest we forget. And of course it says World War 1939 to 1945 remembrance piece. And we've got another version of that says lest we forget, and of course everybody, because we're on the cusp of war again. Oh, and this is interesting. So my special bags, 1966, 50. Most Australian 50-cent pieces are got the edge, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever it is, pentagonal, octagonal, decagonal, however many there are, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, whatever 12 is. This is silver. This is basically stainless steel. There's nickel in it, and this has got silver. So this is probably sterling or close to sterling silver. It's not pure silver. It's got a bit of copper in it, so it's probably 90%, and it's round. These are quite good ones to get because everybody knows what they are. And then of course we've got more classics. Maple leaf. It's Canadian, and this one's interesting that it says on the front here $5. So this has a face value of 5 Canadian dollars, and it's 4 nines here, 9999, which 99.99% pure silver. And then you look at the other little coins, like I said, the Australian kangaroo. That's 9999, 49 silver, and it's got Elizabeth on the back because it's 2020, so they were made before she died. Now if they make any more of these, they'll have King Charles on them. So that's a 2020 year, 1 ounce. You can just probably read it there. 1 ounce silver, and they sound different. So that's the regular coins out of my everyday pocket. Australian coins, real coins. That's your first step in working out what's going on. So 1 ounce, probably about $60 each, Australian at the moment. That's bullion. You can also get silver in little bits like this. That's a ½ ounce. It's an XAG fine silver, 4 nines. That's ½ ounce. And that's a de facto for a coin if you want. So that's quite handy. So bullion. It can even be copper, can be anything really, pure metal, store of value. And you need to look at bullion as in, do you have any? Can you get some? Should you have some? So what's the value of this 1948 halfpenny now? It's copper value. That's copper. Its only value is its copper value, unless somebody decides that there's a special rare year that they had, or there's a, like the kangaroo's leg didn't stamp properly, the coin could be a collectible. It could be quite valuable. That's one way to preserve value, but that's pretty random. And then the other thing is, if you look at these two coins, the maple leaf is slightly smaller than the Australian. Both 1 ounce pure silver coins, Canadian maple leaf and the Australian kangaroo, face value 5 Canadian dollars, face value 1 Australian dollar. But they're both worth their pure metal value, which is 55 roughly Australian dollars in silver weight. So it's got Elizabeth on it from the Queen. It's Elizabeth from the Queen. This one says Canada. And this one says Australia. So there's a working theory, which is a risk theory, that the government believes that they own those coins and that we're allowed to hold them. And so you sort of wonder how viable that risk is, because you look to the history of bullion. Bullion's been kept by kings and queens and knights. The Romans used coins or bullion to pay their soldiers in their campaigns, and they went out and stole all the bullion. The Europeans had sailed to the Americas and plundered the Aztecs and the Incans. So gold and silver have basically represented a store of wealth throughout the centuries and the eons, recognized by nearly everybody. I think one of the only races to not recognize the value of gold would have been, ironically, the Australian Aborigine, the New Zealand Maori. They don't seem to have given a shit about it. Australian Aborigine would have seen the yellow in the creeks. That's how it was first discovered, and out at Lambing Flat near Bendigo in 1843 or something, by a shepherd tending to a flock out in the paddocks. He saw some gold in the creek. Just literally saw it. It wasn't seen earlier, but Australia was found to be covered in the bloody stuff. Still is. People are still pulling kilo plus nuggets out of the ground. So humans have recognized the value of gold and silver, and there's a physical or a chemical reason. It's rare, the same as diamonds are rare, but diamonds are pretty, and so De Beers and what have you can restrict the supply of diamonds and keep the value of diamonds up, but people want them. Women, diamond earrings and diamond rings and things like that. So that's one way of preserving value, is in diamonds. Diamonds have an industrial use, and so we've learned how to make diamond industrially. So gold and silver have industrial uses in computers and electronics and things. Silver is used in solar panels for the conducting, for the electricity, things like that. Copper and iron. And through the Bronze Age and the Iron Age, those things were far more valuable to some of the people, Neolithic people, etc. Wouldn't have given a shit about gold because it was too soft. Same with silver. But iron they were attracted to, and coppers and bronzes, because they could make swords and hold an edge, but particularly iron. Same with aluminium in the middle 1800s. Aluminium was worth more than gold because we discovered it, but you couldn't work out how to make it. It needed electricity to make aluminium. Making aluminium chemically is incredibly difficult. It needs electricity. It's a fantastic history to get into, look at the history of metal and value. So people collect, store sovereigns and Krugerrands and all that kind of thing, florins, And we used to have actual gold and silver coins in circulation through the 1800s, or up to the 1800s. That's what our coins were. And it's an interesting little bit of history to have a look at here. The risk of gold and silver in 1933, and I made some notes. 1933, Executive Order 6102 was signed into law by President Roosevelt. And this forbid the population from hoarding gold. The order was made under the Trading with the Enemy Act of 1917. So this is where we start to say, oh, well, maybe, I'm a libertarian, the government can get rid of it. I don't want to actually believe in all that nonsense. Who has the right to make a law over me? It's like saying now, does the people in America really think that Biden has a right to make laws over you, equivalent to what Roosevelt did in 1933 when he said, "Thou shalt not own gold"? So it was forbidden under that law to possess more than $100 or 5 troy ounces of gold, and that you were required at law to surrender any gold in excess of that quantity, and you would be paid $20.67 per troy ounce. And there were prosecutions and arrests and sting operations and all kinds of things. It's fantastic. Go and read the Wikipedia on that. The limitation on ownership was not repealed until 1974, the 31st of December, 1974. American people were not allowed to own gold in excess of 5 troy ounces. Now, an ounce of gold isn't very much, and we should quickly touch on gold because gold bullion. Gold's very nice. That's an ounce of gold right there. That's 1 ounce. It's a little ABC bullion. 1 ounce of 9999 gold. It's heavy. And you can compare that to a $2 Australian coin and 1 ounce of gold. Obviously, the coin is a lot thinner, so it's like 3 $2 coins nearly to 1 ounce. This is worth $2. This $2 coin doesn't even buy a loaf of bread. This $2 coin does not buy 2 litres of milk. It buys about 1.5 litres of milk. That's what this coin buys. I can't even buy a 600 ml bottle of water in our shops with this $2 coin. This is worth about 3,500 Australian dollars. So this would buy me 2,000 litres of milk. This little blob here would buy me 2,000 litres of milk. This buys me just over 1 litre of milk. What do you wish I had more of? I paid 1,740 Australian dollars for this in 2017, from memory. It's now doubled in value since 2017. So that's pretty cool. And that's bullion. And this little piece of bullion has traveled the world. It's been all over Tasmania. It's been to Germany, Switzerland, Italy, America. It sat in John McAfee's hand, the antivirus guy. Actually, I took this in my pocket with exactly these coins, these other ones here, all in a little baggie. And I took them through every metal detector and airport inspection thing. And not once did the airport people say, "What's in your pocket?" Like, I just put the bag of coins on the tray with my phone and my keys, my wallet, took my steel caps off, showed them my belt, got a brass buckle, went through the scanner. Not once ever did any airport person ever say, "Hey, you've got gold on you." They didn't detect it, couldn't see it, which was interesting. That was the experiment that I was doing. And the McAfee reference is, yeah, I've actually went to America and hung out with John McAfee for a day, a staunch libertarian, because we had a mutual interest in Bitcoin, believe it or not. he was a fantastic fellow, and I'll say this, I don't think he's dead. He faked his death once to escape from the authorities in Belize. Don't think he's clever enough to do it again. Well, that's my hope anyway. I really like him. He's a rogue, but he's one of them lovable rogues. He gave me this. Actually, he gave it to my son, because when I went to Tennessee and met with John, I actually had my eldest son come with me. And he gave us this. No, it's not a Bitcoin. It's just a representation of a Bitcoin. It's just plated zinc, I think. But it's cute. And so he gave this to my son, and we were joking, and I said, oh, check this out, which has got more value, this or this. And yeah, we had a really great connection. We hung out for a day, did some cool things, an interview, really good conversation, fantastic. So cross barriers, cross borders. That's why we have gold and silver. That's why we have money. Because a few people have been asking me lately, Andrew, where do you think the world's going? Biden and Trump and Albo or Dutton here in Australia, Macron versus Marie Le Pen, the Labour Starmer versus whoever. I mean, Bolsonaro. Doesn't matter, any country, we're all in problems. And when governments are in trouble, what do? Well, in 1933, Roosevelt signed an executive order confiscating gold. So, of course, a lot of people buried it and kept it and what have you, but how crazy was that? And then that law remained in force until 1974. It's insane. So, what do? Well, we don't rely on this shit. Because 2 years ago, this coin would buy 2 litres of milk. So during the Australian supermarket wars, they put the price of milk down to $1. And so this $2 coin could buy 2 litres of milk. Now it buys you just under 1.5 litres. And a couple of years ago, it'd buy you a loaf of bread. Now it can only buy you half a loaf of bread. Inflation and the lack of retail pressure makes those coins' value wildly fluctuate. Who remembers the World War II with the marks, the German currency that was worthless and they just kept adding zeros to it? Who remembers the Zimbabwean currency when they kept adding zeros and they had $10 trillion notes eventually? And like the note was that long and it was just all zeros because they just kept adding a zero to try to fight inflation. It had inflation of up to 8,000%. It's insane. So they got wiped out and everyone suffers. It happens again and again. That's potentially on the cusp for a Western democracy. The crash of the US dollar and the decoupling from the petro balance and things like that. That's one reason why you have that stuff. Silver is good to buy. So for example, these silver coins, wow, that's loud. That's a big truck. It's a big American truck, F350 extended range. This Perth Mint makes these. In the last couple of years, they've been banging out about 11 million a year of these. 11 million. So there's a demand for them. They wouldn't make them if there's not a demand. You can actually Google search that. I was looking at it yesterday. 11 million 1 ounce coins in a year. So there is silver out in our world. People are buying it. You can buy it from bullion dealers in the cities pretty easily. You can get it through the mail. You can put an order in, pay with your credit card. The limit in Australia is 5,000 Australian dollars worth of bullion purchase. No ID required. You can pay in cash, credit cards, whatever. You can walk into ABC Bullion in Brisbane or Melbourne. You can walk into various bullion shops in Sydney. You can go to As Good as Gold in Wollongong with my mate down there. He will sell and you can buy it in $5,000 amounts, no ID. And that's important because you don't want ID. You don't want your bullion purchase tracked so that if our stupid government puts in an executive order to confiscate, that you're not on a database somewhere. And remember that this $3,500 blob of metal and this blob of metal is $60. So this equals 50 of these, gold, silver. Interesting. The natural gold to silver ratio is about 1 to 16. So that means for every kilo of gold on the planet, there's 16 kilos of silver. And that for the first 4,800 years of recent human recorded history was pretty much the spending or value ratio difference between gold and silver coins. For every 1 ounce silver coin, 1 ounce gold coin, there were 16 1 ounce silver coins available in circulation. We've decoupled that, and the gold to silver ratio now is something in the order of 1 to 83, which means we've lost grip on that reality. So silver, in my mind, has a much higher upside. And what we mean by upside, again, in using a practical example, when I was a boy, 12 years of age, and I made this lead ingot, lead was 40 cents a kilo. Lead is now $2.40 a kilo. So this has gone up 600% from when I was 12 to now that I'm 51. Let's just say in 40 years. So it's gone up 150% a decade. This gold has gone up 100% in nearly a decade. I bought it in 2017. So it'll probably be 150% in the decade. By the time this gets to about 3,000, maybe it'll have doubled in a decade. These things have been pretty wild in price. I've bought some silver quite cheap and paid a higher price for these because I bought these a couple of weeks ago. I saw some coins and I paid 62. Actually wrote it down. Paid 62 Australian dollars per ounce for them, but you pay higher. I recently, as in last week, bought this for $1,400. It's 1 kilo of 999. It's heavy. All right, so that's about 2 kilos maybe. So that's about $5. That's 1 kilo. They also look like this when you get the prettier ones. So there's 2 kilos. Oh, listen to that. Beautiful. So 2 kilos, $5, 3,000. $3,000, $5, $3,500, $3,000. 1 ounce, 2 kilos, 3,000, 3,500. You spotting the problem yet? Silver's great. Gold's great. Gold's more portable. Silver's more useful. Gold's more portable. Hence, buy your silver in a mixture of bars and coins like this. And your deep preservation of wealth is through gold. And if you are smart enough, your actual deeper preservation of wealth is Bitcoin. And I'm just using this as a prop because it's not how you store Bitcoin. It's just a token. But that's where you can store Bitcoin digitally. But the problem is that Bitcoin only works when there's internet or electricity. That doesn't need electricity. That can sit in my pocket. That can be sat in a hole. Could make a necklace out of it. Probably look a bit wrong. So gold is going to be quite portable if you have to move for whatever reason. Silver is more easily divisible and spendable for surviving currency crashes. If we have a runaway inflation, runaway dollar, etc. These are some of the reasons why you need to invest in this shit. And of course, I will show off because I did buy this a couple of years ago. That's a big lump. AVC bullion. It's like 3.3 kilos. It's 100 ounce. And it's 99.9.5. So it's a little smidgy off 4 nines. But these are a good way to store value. And you wrap them up tight, waterproof them, and stick them away. And if anyone thinks they're going to come and rob me, where do you think this fella's going this afternoon? I actually have had quite a lot of people ask me to help get their head around. They're sort of wanting to know what to buy, where do you buy it, how do you buy it. I'll put some links up in the chat. There's some really good YouTube follows. Quite a few of them are in America. Silver stacking, and they do this after. Silver buyers. There's, I'll find the name of the channel. There's some great conversations happening amongst people. Yankee stacking. YouTube's great to watch with Tim. I can't remember the exact state he's in. He's really interesting. So SD Bullion is a bullion seller. They do some great YouTube videos as well. You can watch Rob Parsons if you look up that name on YouTube or the internet. He goes a sniping, where he puts on a mask and a snorkel in remote creeks in Tasmania, and he picks at the creek bed looking for gold, and he sucks it up into a gold pen and goes sluicing. You can buy your gold from bullion dealers. I can't see all the other. I'll put some links up. But you've got to think about, where is our future going as a society, and why would you buy gold? Quick recap of history. 1915, gold was $600 US. And now, in 1915, $600 US would buy a shitload. You could buy a house for that. 1920, it was 314. 1934, it spiked up to 820. That's around about the Depression, isn't it? The gold started to become more valuable as the current financial markets melted down. 1970, gold was back to 300. March of 1973, when I was born, gold was 550. In 1980, one of those crashes we had, 2,650 for gold. And then of April 2001, gold was back down to 460. And in May of 2024, at the recent price height, 2,450 US dollars. That's its peak. But what do you buy for a US dollar in May of 2024 compared to what you could buy with a US dollar in 1915 or 1920 or 1934 or 1970 or 1973 for that matter? All right. Same as when I was a boy, go down to the little corner store in Camberwarra, you could buy a bag of eucalyptus oils, and there's like 30 or something of them in the bag. It was, I mean, my hand's a lot bigger these days, but it was a hand full of eucalyptus lollies for 20 cents. Now that, so price inflation, that's what we would buy these metals for, but they're not perfect. It's just part of an approach. The other things you need to have are things like seeds, heirloom seeds, and friends in a crisis. That's what you need. And everybody does their little bit, their little skill. So it's all well and good to have bullion and metal, and trust me, this shit can buy your friends anywhere at any time. But the real way for wealth preservation is friends and networks, and that's what we've also built. Yeah, there's some some trials and tribulations in our area, particularly, trials and tribulations that I face with police and corrupt law enforcement and craziest things. And I'm being involved politically again as part of a pushback effect. We had all the lockdowns and the vaccine experiment totally worked the first time, didn't it? So let's do it again. I don't get that bit. Get yourself a stainless steel coffee cup because they don't break when you drop them. All right, just think about what you're going to need to be able to withstand downturns, economic crisis, whether real or manufactured, prolonged periods of isolation or being locked down, solar panels, batteries, energy, access to energy, wood, steel plate for cooking on, and an ability to preserve your wealth for barter and for trade. The other thing that you should also make sure you have or have access to is, if you're young and you come across this channel, a trade, a skill. I did an electrical fitters apprenticeship, so I did electrical and I did machining and fitting along with boiler making as part of my trade. I did a mixed trade, so I can weld and machine and all kinds of stuff, mechanics. I did engineering at night school, so I did electrical engineering at night school. So I have a trade and a skill to fall back on, and you never know. Personal example, I was running my scrap metal business for years. I got royally fucked over by the New South Wales government, and they destroyed my business, shut me down, prosecuted me, and they lost their case, but I lost too, because I had told the court to, actually I told the Environment Protection Authority, but the court considered that I had said it to the court. I told the court to get fucked, apparently. And so I got fined $50,000 Australian as contempt of court. Biggest personal fine for contempt of court in Australian history, apparently. So go me. I am a staunch libertarian. And John McAfee did think that was very funny when I told him that story. But he won much bigger battles and lost much bigger fights than I did. I packed everything away. My relationship was on a knife edge with the girl I was with at the time, and I said, I'm leaving Australia. I pretty much never want to come back. So I applied for a job in New Zealand just for shits and giggles one night online to be an electrician in a ski field. And a couple of days later, they rang me and said, can we do an interview? So I did a phone interview, and they rang back a day later and said, when can you start? Can you start in 2 weeks? So I actually managed to pack up. Wasn't much left to pack up, but I packed up my life and my dog and my girlfriend, and we moved to New Zealand. And I went and worked in a ski field in New Zealand. So I went from scrap metal and truck driving, doing scrap metal, to being a senior electrician in a ski field, commissioning a snowmaking system up on a volcano. That is a transportable skill that everybody should desire to have. Jobs in the bureaucracy are to get you so far until the bureaucracy crashes or eats you. But a transportable skill. So anyone with kids making their way through school and sort of wondering, get back into the trades, get a skill. Building, I mean, bricklaying's a skill, but it's going to wear you out. You're going to be buggered by your 30. Building, electrician, look for them, get good at them. Farming, go and work experience on a farm. Again, that's the other side to this. This is great, only gets you so far. The other half of the journey is an ability to do things, to defend yourself, to feed yourself, to protect yourself, to move yourself, to make friends. If you've got things that you can do that they can't, they'll become your friend, vice versa. that's the other half to the equation. I hope that helps. Some people get their head around it. I don't mind doing chats and talk about a bit of philosophy. If you watch my YouTube channel and you think, oh, fuck, this is a bit erratic, this guy. Yeah, it is, because there's Salam, Uzbekistan. My name is Dildora. Hello, Dildora. I'm imagining that's Russian. Welcome to Australia. And that's because I'm involved in politics, local politics, federal politics. Again, I'm a centrist, libertarian, and I don't like bullshit. I don't like lies. And yeah, I am being targeted and attacked because I've done some cool shit in my life. Like I said, I went and hung out with John McAfee, the antivirus guy. We were filming a 1 hour show for one of our Australian TV stations about Bitcoin and whatever. I'm apparently the first bloke to mine Bitcoin in a solar farm in the world, which is a bit wild, but back in 2014, 2013, pretty early in the piece. My name is Andrew. So, got a good network, know a lot of people, got a lot of friends, and got a lot of knowledge. So I'm happy to share it, because too often lately the media are trying to portray that I'm the bad man. And I'm not. I'm smart, and I don't take shit lying down. I fight back hard. And in the rules of war, you come at me, I'll come back at you 10 times harder, but not necessarily all at once. Play the long game. You need to play the long game with me, people. We are able to be friends across the oceans and within. Save up, buy a bit of gold, buy some silver, start thinking about your futures and how you're going to withstand the nonsense of a collapsing Western democracy, because it's coming. We don't know how fast it is, but it is coming. The Ponzi scheme of housing in Australia is, it amazes me. Every year it keeps going, but when it crashes, it'll crash hard and fast, and that's what they learned in the 30s. So we're not doing anything particularly new, we're just doing it in a different pace and against a backdrop of lies. That doesn't lie. An ounce of silver is an ounce of silver until the sun explodes. You can melt this down and make it into another shape. You can make a blob. The fact that it's got Canada written on it, is the Canadian government going to demand I hand back their 1 ounce of silver that I bought through a private treaty sale? No. Is the Australian government going to demand I hand over coins that have got Australia on them? Well, if they do, I won't be able to find them. Sorry, can't remember where I put them. Buried them in back somewhere. Can't remember. That's why you need to be switched on up here. Thanks for tuning in. I hope that was helpful. Sing out if you want to have any more chats. And if the robbers are thinking of coming to my house, trust me, it's a house full of Lego. There's no room for silver. I've got 5 kids, and we have got Lego everywhere. Because my kids I've got 7-year-old twins. And they're massively into Lego at the moment. So if you come and take their Lego, your life won't be worth living. Anyway, thanks for tuning in. I hope that helps. Ciao.